joins me now, who's General Counsel for Advancing American Freedom. Marc, welcome back to the program. And are these critics of the president accurate in saying, well, maybe he's not as pro-life as we wanted him to be?
Lars, thanks for having me back. You know, you and I had that in common. We both said that he was the most pro-life president in American history in his first term. Mm-hmm. But over the Biden years, he had a change of, if not heart, a decision politically that he was no longer going to stand up for what he stated he believed in the first term. And it's just been awful this term. We have the Department of Justice filing motions saying states don't have standing to bring up law enforcement issues relating to protecting their pro-life laws. We have the president saying, look, you pro-lifers, you have to be flexible on the Hyde Amendment, which for decades has banned the financing of abortion with tax dollars.
Yeah, federal tax dollars, we should point out, right, Marc?
But correct. I mean, I think that there are states that use state tax dollars for abortions, but it's illegal at the federal level.
Yeah, so why is Trump taking this position? Is this just a political calculation? Because then that doesn't make him much better than any other politician out there. That was one of the things we liked about Trump, was he just say what he was going to say, and he didn't stop to have the gears turn in his head and say, maybe I shouldn't say it that way because it won't be popular to say it that way.
Well, you know, I mean, I think it's hard to know what's in Trump's heart, particularly on social issues. But, you know, we do know that he's very transactional. And the people who stood by him in the first term were the hardcore conservatives and the pro-lifers. The mainstream part of the Republican Party abandoned him. You know, the Bush wing did not want anything to do with him. Yep. So part of the transactional relationship was I'll stick with the conservatives, even though I never met any conservatives in my life until I ran for president. Right?
Well, and
so it turned out to be a great relationship. During Trump-Pence.
Well, Marc, let me ask you this, because one of the things that struck me as strange was that Melania Trump, who could have, she chose to be public about the fact that she calls herself pro-choice. Now, I reject the label of pro-choice altogether, because I think it's one of those weasel terms that says, oh, I'm in favor of people making decisions, and abortion is one of them. You're either pro-abortion or you're not. And I know there are people who try to say, well, personally, I'm pro-life, but, politically, I'll be in favor of women being able to seek an abortion. Well, that means you're pro-abortion. And Melania Trump came out in favor of that. I usually think of presidents' families and their spouses as being, to some extent, off limits unless they decide to involve themselves in the political process. She chose to do that by taking a position at the time she announced that she was pro-abortion or pro-choice. She was taking a position that I read as antithetical to Trump's position. And I wondered if she felt the need to actually say, I'm pro-choice, then, why did you have to say it out loud? Because your position on the issues really isn't all that important. You're the first lady. You're not a policymaker. You're the president's wife. Not to diminish her in any other way, but she has no formal role in the government, and yet she felt necessary to come out and say, and was that part of the balancing act? That Trump gets to be, personally pro-life, his wife comes out as pro-abortion or pro-choice, and is that another political calculation?
It could have been. We don't even know if the president prompted his wife to come out and say that, so that there was some room for maneuver for him. And when it became really hard to stand up for pro-life principles on things that, the House and the Senate have endorsed for really a generation, on the Hyde Amendment, banning federal tax dollars, he started to pull back on that. And no Republican president has pulled back on Hyde since it's been part of the law. So there's a lot of things going on. People at the White House indicate that, Trump thinks that the pro-life cause is a political loser. We disagree with that. We think it not only is a good policy, but it's also good politics.
Well, Mark, I've even had people try to persuade me, say, Lars, it's a loser, number one. Number two, there are no changes. Well, there are big changes because of the abortion bill and because of telehealth and because of decisions made by Biden that have tried to make abortion even easier than it ever was before, and even something that you could have boyfriends who aren't crazy about their girlfriend getting pregnant surreptitiously sabotaging the pregnancy. I mean, more evil than you ever thought abortion could be. And yet that's happening right now. And that is something that the current administration plays a role in whether or not that stuff happens or not under policies from the FDA and other agencies.
That's right. I mean, one thing that your listeners will be very troubled to learn is because of these chemical abortions are replacing surgical abortions, there's actually more abortions now than there were before Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court.
Yep.
So, people think, well, I'd rather take a pill than go in and have surgery. Yeah, the pill is actually more dangerous than the surgical abortions.
Yep.
And people don't know that, and it's really been up to groups like Ethics and Public Policy Center that look at insurance claims. And within 45 days of a woman taking mifepristone, they found that there were hospital admissions, emergency goes 1 in 10.
It is unbelievable. Marc, thanks very much. That's Marc Wheat, who's General Counsel for Advancing American Freedom.